Everybody. Welcome to Top Tips in the Seller's Market, presented by the Buffalo News and Howard Hanna. We're joined tonight by industry experts to answer your questions about selling in today's market. So we hope you guys enjoy, and we're going to dive right in. So Thea, please feel free to take it away whenever you are ready.
Thanks, Melissa. Thank you all for joining us, and welcome to Top Tips in the Seller's Market, hosted by the Buffalo News and Howard Hanna. I'm your host for this evening, Thea Teopecht. And if you're selling, which is the reason why you're probably joining us this evening, I'm not sure there's a better time to sell your house in Western New York. I personally know this, as a couple of weeks ago, my husband and I lost a home that went for $100,000 over asking. So that's just the market that we're in right now. And in April of this year, Buffalo home prices were up 16% compared to last year, selling for a median price of $192,000. Most houses now are selling in less than 2 weeks, although we've heard many houses sell the day they go on the market. And the last 2 years, we've seen a huge surge in sales and home prices. So this is great news for sellers, right? Absolutely, especially if you already have somewhere to move. But what if you're interested in making top dollar and want to hold on to your long-held investment, but you don't have a plan beyond that? Or should you sell and rent? Should you move in with your grown kids? Should you sell and downsize, or are you better off holding on to your current home? We aim to address these and many other questions today with 3 experts on hand who all have the answers. Our first panelist is Shalia Ferrantino, manager of the Howard Hanna Grand Island office, and she has been selling real estate for more than 20 years in Western New York and covers the entire Western New York market. Next is Lisa Avery, manager of the Hamburg office. Lisa grew up in the real estate business and has been licensed for more than 35 years, and she specializes in the South Towns area, plus vacation properties and more. Last but not least, our third panelist is Kevin Horan, and he's regional sales manager for First Priority Mortgage, and he's been providing expert service in residential mortgages for more than 33 years in Western New York. So our panelists are all looking forward to answering all of your questions today. And first, we plan to go through some of our cover story topics on local real estate and address some of the questions you all pre-submitted. And as we go, feel free to enter your questions into the chat. We will answer them all throughout our conversation today within the hour. And you're just going to use the chat feature on the right-hand side of your computer. We'll monitor those questions, and we'll go and pose them to our panelists and as we go along. So thanks so much, and let's begin. So we'll start with Shalia and Lisa. What are some of the most interesting recent sales you've had? We'll start with Shalia.
That's a great question. As we walk through the real estate journey, we are blessed enough to meet all kinds of people and with all different needs. So recently I had a client that called me up and wanted to sell. They were moving to their next stage of life, which means that they were moving out of state and moving in with the son. But the son could not be up here to help for good reasons. And so as we walked through that journey with them, they were leaving a house that they were in for 60 years. And it was a very emotional journey for them. And we were able to help them move, pack their stuff up, and get them on the road to where they wanted to be. But it's just such an emotional time. So it was just such a great feeling knowing that they finally reached their goal to get down to their son. So
yeah, that's a good point, Shalia. Just all the memories of your children growing up in the home.
Right. That's everything that they knew was in that house, and they had to let go of it.
Lisa?
I think, and looking at the other end of the spectrum, a recent sale that I thought was pretty interesting was a first-time seller. So it was a young woman who had bought a home on her own. She was in that house for about 10 years. And because of everything that was happening in the area and also in her life, she decided to kind of figure out if it was the right time to sell. She was able to realize quite a bit of equity in that first property. She ended up buying a second home, and she got a mortgage through First Priority, and her payment really didn't change because she had so much equity from a smart purchase the first time and rolling it into another purchase. And now she's just at that second house, and she did it all on her own, which is exciting to watch as well.
Kevin, can you kind of jump in? Because there's a lot of people that say, oh, I want to sell my house, but I can't afford the new mortgage rate. You had explained this so wonderfully before when we first spoke. Can you explain it to our viewers?
Yeah, first of all, we want to thank the Buffalo News, Howard Hanna, First Priority. So thank you for putting this on, and thanks for promoting home ownership in West New York. It's very important. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on with interest rates these days, correct? So a lot of times a seller will end up with more money than they ever dreamed of. They deal with a professional Howard Hanna agent. They sit down, they come up with a price strategy, they end up with more money. We start getting creative with this. So understand, some of us may have some extra debt that we may have that, what are we going to do with this extra money? Do we put it on the new home? Do we keep some of it to the side? There's many times we sit down with the client, we talk to them, and then we realize, look, maybe we should shift some of the resources from the sale of the house to pay off your car loan, to pay off some of those credit cards that just been hanging out there way too long. And like Lisa was saying, we may be able to get you in a situation where in your budget, you're getting a bigger home, but your budget's not changing. We're just shifting it from a high interest rate car loan to credit cards into a home payment. So there's lots of things that we can do once we're here to educate and then help the consumer out. We do ask a lot of questions, Thea. That's just one of the things that we do, because the more answers we get, the better choices we can help with the sellers of the property.
We have our first viewer question. I think it's for you, Kevin. We own our home outright. We want to take advantage of this market. What is the best way to go about this? A construction loan, we have nearly no debt. And of course, every person's, what they're going to do with their mortgage is going to be individualized to them.
Did you say a construction loan with like a new build? I'm sorry.
She said, what is the best way to go about this? A construction loan, we nearly have no debt.
Construction loan, we nearly have no debt. Once again, it depends on the end goal here. So we have different programs. Like, give an example. The whole question may be also is, when do I sell my home? Do I sell my home now and worry about where I'm going to live? If it's a new build, it sounds to me, if it's a construction loan, it's a new build.
It is a new build. They just added that. Sorry.
Thank you. So that's what it looked like. Yeah. So new builds are wonderful. You find a reputable builder. We have wonderful, in Western New York. The biggest thing you want to do, in my opinion, is sit down and talk with a first priority loan officer. Find out the budget that you're interested in. Like, I don't want my mortgage payment to go over whatever budget is, $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month, $1,000 a month. So have that conversation. We then figure out, okay, if you buy a new home for $500,000, you put down $200,000, you end up with a mortgage for $300,000. But a new build is an interesting vehicle because you kind of get what you want, and you spend time with a builder. The biggest thing you got to remember is it takes some time, especially with what's going on in the marketplace. Normally if a build took 5 months, it might take 8. You really need to talk with the builder. I just closed on a new build myself, not personally, but one of my clients had a wonderful experience. It may take them 7 months, but at the end of the day, the family's very happy that they did that. But once again, it's hard to answer that without asking more questions, but we definitely can help you with that without a problem.
And afterward, I'll push everyone to the website, but I'll say it now. All of our panel's information can be found on howardhanna.com. So if you want to look up Kevin's information, it's there. Shalee and Lisa, what factors go into determining a home price? Are website estimates accurate?
Sorry.
Is muted.
Elisa muted.
Sorry, I pressed the wrong button there. I think that the websites give you a good starting point. So for example, you can go to howardhanna.com. We have a great feature called What's My Home Worth? When you click on that and you put in your address, we're going to give you three different estimates, which will give you a wide range of where your house may fit. And so that's kind of what we say the jumping off point. Okay, it can be between this and this. When you really want to know the value, and the value, there are many people who are going to determine the value, right? So you're going to sit with your agent. You're going to talk about where do you want to end up. You're going to look at marketing strategies. You're going to look at what's the best way to position your home compared to the other competition on the market. Are you in a neighborhood where nothing is for sale? Are you in a neighborhood where many homes are for sale? All of those factors will go into it. But your agent's going to be able to help you sort through that to figure out the best place to put it. And then ultimately, a buyer is going to come along, and maybe there might be more than one of them interested in your home, and that's going to help determine the price as well. But really, the value, when we say the home price, the list price, the sale price, the assessed value, all those factors are a good conversation with your agent. But definitely, if you want to just get a starting point, go to howardhanna.com, what's my home worth, and we'll give you 3 opinions.
Good to know. I didn't know you guys had that resource. Shalia, a lot of factors go into a sale, even in the seller's market. What are the top 3 things sellers should do to prepare their homes?
Have a strategy for one. Call up your local professional realtor and have a conversation. There's so many things that go into getting your home ready. A lot of sellers want to know what they need to do. So neutralizing the home is a great thing, taking care of the landscaping, making sure that the pets are, have somewhere to go when you're ready to put the house on the market. There's a lot of things that go into play for this.
Lisa, anything to add?
I do. I was thinking about this some more. I moved 5 years ago. So I went through selling a house and purchasing a home. And we all, if you're living in your house, it's kind of like you walk past maybe a dent in the door every day, and then someone else will walk in and they will notice it. One recommendation I would say is take pictures of your house. And then look at the pictures rather than looking at the room. Chances are your realtor, or they may even hire a professional photographer. They might do virtual tours, 360 pictures. So take pictures of your house and look at those pictures and think about decorating or staging the room for the time of year. This time of year, you might be highlighting a sliding glass door that looks out on your patio or your swimming pool. In the winter, it might be cozy chairs around a fireplace. So think about how will your house look in pictures, because that's the first way the buyers are going to see it. And you will notice things about your house when you look at a picture that you've never noticed when you walked through the room. Trust me, it happened to me, and we're all professionals. So take some pictures.
That's a great tip. Should you put money into renovations directly before you sell, or leave that to the buyer? Is it worth it? Does it depend on the market? Who wants to take this one?
Yeah, that's a great question too. A lot of sellers want to know, should we remodel the kitchen? Should we redo the bathroom? Sometimes we would say yes. Sometimes we might say don't do anything. It really will take a good visual on the home to be able to give that advice to a seller. So there might be some things you want to do. It might be something as simple as just repainting, as opposed to going through some huge remodel.
Yeah, I'd like to add a couple things. As far as the bank is concerned, it's important to understand what will happen once you sell the home. If you accept a buyer that needs a mortgage, which most people need a mortgage these days to buy a home, not all, but most do. There's going to be a professional appraiser, independent from all the lenders, will go through that property. They're going to look at things, especially health and safety issues. So it's important to know, look around from a health and safety thought process. Do you have wires in the basement that's been hanging that you really wanted to take care of the last 5 years, but you just never got around to? Is there open junction boxes without a lid? Do I need a professional, an electrician to come in to tidy things up that my handyman husband was playing with for the last 10 years? Especially peeling paint. I want to take the time now for one quick second. If you have any peeling paint around the house, the trim, the garage, even the shed in the backyard, you may want to spend a little time, scrape, paint, all that taken care of. Any house in Western New York built before 1978 may have lead paint in it. So the peeling paint could be a health issue. If your little grandson comes over and starts eating the chip paint, it's an issue. So just because you didn't think you needed to really paint the back of the garage because no one will see it, the appraiser will catch it. And then it's going to have to be done before closing anyhow. So in my opinion, like Lisa was saying, take pictures, and Shalia was saying, just take a few minutes and say, what should really be done with this health and safety issue? idea, because those are the things that will be called for on an appraisal, almost guaranteed.
Good point. Kevin, if you don't have a second home or in-laws to move in with, what's your next move?
Well, it's all about strategy. We've heard about that. We've heard about communication and why it's important to work with a professional real estate agent and a professional loan officer, especially here at First Priority. But here's what some folks are doing right now. And this is probably the most creative that I've gotten people into, is if you afford it, and it's up to having a conversation with us to confirm all that. But I have seen many of people buy a new home before they even list their old house. Get in for the minimum amount of money. 5% down is typically the minimum amount of money needed. Pay your closing costs and taxes. That money can come from your checking, your savings. It can come from an existing home equity line of credit you may have on your house. It can come from a loan from a 401k, mom and dad as a gift. Buy the new home with that. Then once you close on the new home, put the other home on the market, whatever, sell it. Once you end up with your money, you then can go back, go to the loan bank that has your mortgage, recast your loan, which basically means add the extra 15% down to eliminate what we call private mortgage insurance. Get your principal and interest payment down to where you need it, where you wanted it to begin with. So once again, you can shift your resources from doing it today, you need a little bit, and then later on, add the extra money, and 3 months after you move into the new home, and end up at the same spot where you want it. It's a creative way of doing it. You may end up paying a mortgage, 2 mortgages for a month or 2, but in this market, maybe only 1. It's a great way not to be concerned about where am I going to move. Okay, if I sell my house today, what am I going to do? You can do a reverse contingency. So I guess I'm passionate behind this because there's lots of ways to do things once we ask the right questions, and if you're willing to do it, there's typically ways to get it done.
Have you had clients do that?
Whoops, sorry.
What's that?
There was a question. Have you had clients do that
Oh,
strategy?
absolutely. I got numerous ones this year have done that. Yeah, because in this market, and please reach out to the real estate professional at Howard Hanna first, but you shouldn't have any challenge selling your home, right? So if you know your house is going to sell, and you know this is only a short-term shifting of resources, it definitely works very well. I have many of folks thank me, like amazing, like, oh my God, I can't believe you're putting this together. It's really working the way you say it's going to work. And there's a little pain. There's always pain. You may have to call mom and dad and say, you know what, I need a gift for 20 grand. Some people may not want to do that. So that's why I say the 401k loan or whatever. But yes, there's numerous people who do that all the time.
Shalia, what did you want to add?
No, I was just going to say, this is the great thing that we do, is we have that opportunity to sit with the seller and do counseling and to find out what their motivation is, to find out if they do have a backup plan. And if not, then we talk about several options that could possibly happen. So that's a great opportunity that we have.
We had another viewer question that came in. Once you decide to sell, what is the average amount of time till it goes on the market? Lisa, Shalia?
Yeah, I mean, it can be as fast. It can be as fast as you want. If someone called one of the agents at Howard Hanna today and said, hey, we're ready, we want to list our house tonight, we can get it on the market tonight. If we have someone who says, hey, we're thinking in a week, we want just a short list of to-do items, it's Tuesday, we want to have it on by the weekend, that's totally up to you. We have people say, hey, we're doing a garage sale this weekend, and then we're going to clean and sweep and put it on the market Tuesday. If we have a little lead time, it allows us a little kind of pre-marketing, getting some pictures done, taking a few extra steps. But really, again, sometimes I feel like we're a broken record because we keep saying, well, we're going to consult with you. We're going to talk to you about your options. And sometimes I've even had people say, hey, 14 is my lucky number. I want to list it on the 14th. Okay, we'll do it on the 14th.
Kevin, beyond the amount offered, what else should be considered when evaluating multiple offers?
There's a few things that come to mind. let's go with the fact that there's a couple ways. If it has a mortgage contingency, which means your buyer is getting a mortgage, go with that first, right? Most people get a mortgage. Two things happen. A, is it from a lender that you know? Is it a local lender? It is so critical. The internet is a wonderful tool for some information. Some things, you know, I'm on Amazon way too much. My wife's always yelling at me. But at the end of the day, we do what we got to do, right? But you can get some information on the internet. But to really understand when you get a pre-approval letter from a local lender, it means so much more. Why? Because the local people, we care about Western New York. We know Western New York, right? So one of the things, if you're a seller, if you have a local lender presenting, you know, the pre-approval letter, it means a lot more than the internet bank, because, you know, we verify a lot of the information. That's one of the things on the contract. The other thing is, what type of loan is it? If it's a government loan, isn't it wonderful? We do a ton of VA loans, a ton of FHA loans, Sunny Mae loans, great for first-time home buyers, New York State loan. So there's a lot of great programs out there. The biggest issue with the government loan is peeling paint. So as long as you as a seller is taking care of that peeling paint, it's fine. It's as good as
Just
anything.
laughing.
Yeah, but it's so true. I have more discussions about peeling paint, but if we hit it head on, then people get it. It's like, what I haven't painted that shed in 20 years. Then either A, get rid of the shed, which I have a story, but I don't have time to tell about that. We don't care if you drag it to the next door neighbor's house. So that was my idea one time and it worked fine. But my point here is get it done before. And the other thing on it, of course, you have timing, right? You got, what are the terms and conditions on it? You know, does it fit your timeline as a seller? You know, they want to close in a month, or we want to close in 45 days or 60 days. We have done many mortgages that we've closed in 30 days, but everybody has to be on top of their game. The agent has to know what they're doing. The attorneys need to know what they're doing. The consumer needs to give the lender what they need immediately. You know, we can't keep looking for that same W-2 for 3 weeks to get it done in 30 days. So my point is, there's a lot of wonderful things on that contract. It's important. It's not always about the price at the end of the day.
This is an excellent viewer question that just came in, which I think a lot of people tuning in tonight are wondering. How does one decide whether to rent or buy after selling a house? I'm in the 55 plus age group. I want to downsize to a townhouse or condo, but should I buy or rent? Who wants to take this one?
You know, it's such a personal decision, right? If I was going out to dinner with this person asking the question and they said, should I have the salmon or the steak? I'd say, boy, those are both great options. What are you in the mood for? What is your feeling? You know, if you, and if the viewer is talking about renting or buying, it sounded like in a townhouse or a homeowners association, something like that. It might come down to how comfortable are you living under someone else's rules and regulations. You know, if I go into an apartment, I'm bound by what's there. I'm bound by what the owner of the building, the landlord, is allowing me to do. If I go into a homeowners association, there's a lot of services that are provided, but I might not be able to plant a beautiful rose bush in my front yard because it's not allowable in the guidelines of the association. So, you know, there are so many factors to that. I think one of the nice things we're seeing because of the market that we're in Western New York is, you know, nothing's permanent, right? Like if you could move into an apartment for a year and if you hate it, you call one of our agents again and you buy something else. You move into a homeowners association, it doesn't turn out to be exactly what you wanted. You know, prices are appreciating, you can sell it and move on to something else. You know, I think in Western New York, we have a tendency to stay put, which is a wonderful thing. But you know what, in other parts of the country, and even when I think about my kids, they have no problem moving every year or two. So what I would say is, just like if we were going out to dinner, you can get the salmon today, and when we go out on the weekend, you can have steak. So it doesn't have to be a decision for life. Just kind of picture yourself. You know, sometimes you want to drive around the neighborhood, see how it feels. If you know some people who live in a community you're considering, check it out. You know, there are some communities in our area that have open houses. One in particular has a pool. They'll have a party in the summer and allow people to check it out to see what they think. So take some time thinking about that. But you know, even, you know, in your 50s, you've got a lot of life left and you can always change it up again.
Great analogy, Lisa.
Yeah.
The next question is something I recently just had to learn about. It's escalation clauses. What are they and what are some of their benefits and detriments? Shalia, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take that. Escalation clause is put into the contract, and it says that the buyer will pay a certain amount of money, say $1,000 over ask price up to a certain point. So they have positives and negatives in them. And I can tell you that I have seen many times where there was an escalation clause on the contract, and the seller went back and said, no, just have them come in at their highest and best. And there were multiple offers. And the seller ended up getting a lot more money over that escalation ceiling. So if they would have taken the $1,000 over, they would have lost out.
There's a misconception that a house will sell itself. Why is that not true? And I'm going to combine that with a viewer question that came in that said, what is the purpose of having an agent? Why don't I just sell my house for sale by owner if I have the time and energy?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, the idea of a house selling itself, you know, it would be great for all of us if they just sold themselves, right? And we can spend hours and hours talking about real estate sales and blockchain, but it's still an emotional purchase. It's somewhere you're going to live. Having that intermediary who can help with negotiation, you know, bringing someone in, second from our doctor, your mortgage person asks you the most personal questions you're ever going to be asked. You know, when you fill out a mortgage, they know more about you than almost anyone else. And so if you're selling by owner, you might not be comfortable asking a stranger some of those questions to ensure that they really can purchase the house, that they have the means to move forward, that they're qualified to move forward. And that is one of the big parts that a real estate agent will bring to you, and handling everything from contract to closing. There's quite a bit that needs to be done even after the contract is signed to ensure that your property does close, and working with the buyer's attorney, the seller's attorney, the bank attorney. There is quite a bit that goes with it. And that's why a lot of people do feel comfortable hiring someone to represent them during this large transaction. And since I forgot the second part of the question, I'm going to turn it over to Shalia.
The second part of the question was, I'm sorry.
I think you guys covered it. We have a lot of questions and we're at the halfway mark. So I'm just going to, I just want to make sure everyone who's tuned in is able to get their question answered. You guys have mentioned photos a few times. Someone asked, is it worth investing in a photographer who specializes in real estate shots?
Absolutely. A professional photographer takes so much, their pictures are so greater than like if we just went in and used our phones, and it really speaks to the house and it tells its story much better.
Kevin, what do rising interest rates mean for a new payment?
Well, first of all, I mean, historically, rates are fantastic now. I mean, who would have thought that over the past couple of years, interest rates would have been down in the 3% range, right? I mean, we wouldn't have thought that. So historically, even though the rates may be, 5 with the APR 5.1, it's still an amazing time to buy. Right now, I've done some quick math, okay? If you would have bought a home last year at the lowest interest rate possible, and compared to today's interest rate, let's say the average loan amount is $200,000 in Western New York, right? It's approximately that much. So if the average loan is $200, your payment now is about $180 more per month than it would have been if you would have bought at the very lowest interest rate. It's like if you would have bought Apple at $1, well, you probably wouldn't be on this call today, would you? So my point is, even though we have a raising rate environment, we all have to live with it, right? We're paying more for everything. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is right now. You can kick and scream about it, or you can figure out a way to work with it. And the way to work with it is, as simple as, can you get your credit higher? Can you talk with one of the loan officers at a first priority mortgage and have them help you to see what options you have to move your credit a little bit higher? Yeah, in my world, The higher the credit score, the better the interest rate. So you can mitigate some of the high interest rate mode by making sure you're getting the best deal possible. I mean, to go with that, we have this second look program. As simple as it sounds is, we're here to help. And I think I mentioned that a few hundred times today, but we have this program that if you've been pre-approved by another lender, give us the pre-approval. As long as we can also do the pre-approval, we give you $100. The point behind that deal is just to make sure that you're getting the best deal possible. 90% of the people that call us after they've already talked with their lender will stay with us. So we have a lot to offer. We have various banks. So all you can do to mitigate the high interest rates is to make sure you've done your homework. You ask the right questions to your lender. You've asked for a second opinion by another lender. That's what you can do. We can't move the rates, but we can make sure you're getting the best deal possible. And like I said, maybe it's some creative financing, moving some resources to pay off some debt. There's lots of ways to mitigate your house budget at the end of the day.
Can you emphasize for our viewers how important it is to choose local? I've heard that many times, but why is it so important to be able to call someone with a 716 number versus going with?
Yeah, I mean, from my vantage point, local people care about local people. It doesn't mean we don't care about people that live in California, but at the end of the day, everyone likes to take care of their own, right? We have the same news. We have the same football team that we love. So two things happen. We understand your market. We understand the closing costs. We understand taxes. We deal with taxes. We are all homeowners here. You know what? And so if there's a situation that comes up, who better for your personal attorney to call than a local lender? They already know us. Who's better to deal with a local, Howard Hanna agent? We already know this. It's easy to take care of situations when you know the people on the other end of the phone. You actually get a phone call returned in a timely manner. And the other thing is, we keep the money local. I know we all talk about things, but we all make income, right? We do the job the right way. As long as we satisfy the client's needs and wants, everybody wins. If we can continue putting income back into Western New York, it just gives us stronger. So it's important to support local. It's like Made in America store, right, that we have around here. They just bring things that are made in America. And you just go in there, you feel good. At the end of the day, if you can get the best deal possible here locally, why go anywhere else? We're all passionate about Buffalo, and that's what we do.
Go Bills.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we had a pre-submitted question for Shalia and Lisa. We're thinking of downsizing in about 5 years. Should we act now because the market is so good and inventory is so low?
Well, that really is a personal decision to make, and there's so many factors that could be built into that. It really depends on what your motivation is, where you're going to go, and in 5 years from now, we have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, what happened in the last 5 years, we had no idea that was going to happen. So we don't have a crystal ball. We only can tell you what's going on today, and today is a great market.
Kevin, what is the difference between a pre-approval versus the pre-qualification letter?
This is one of the best questions I get, and I like this question because I'll make it very simple. A pre-qual letter means that the lender did run your credit, but they took everything that you verbally told us. You said you made $50,000 a year. That's what we're putting down. You told us that you have this much money. That's what we put down. You told us you've been at this, employer for 3 years. That's what we wrote down. So that's a pre-qual letter. It's fine, but a pre-approval letter means not only did we get that information there, we also verified that information. We got the W-2s. We looked at them. We looked at your pay stubs. We figured out your income. What's amazing to me, and some of your audience will laugh, you may not know exactly what you make a year until you start looking at your pay stubs. And there's times I tell you what you make, and you're like, I never knew that, because taxes.
You'd be shocked how many people don't look at their pay stub. I actually just recently found this out.
Right? I mean, it's just, I'm like, I don't know. It just happens. So the biggest thing with the pre-approval is we run it through an underwriting machine. It's called AUS. Doesn't matter what it's called. It's automatic underwriting system. It's basically connected to FHA, VA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. We actually take your information, put it all in the computer, and then send it off. Within like 2 minutes, we get the approval back, which means a pre-approval letter is a much better letter to accept if you're a seller of the home. If you're going to be selling and buying, it is much better to have your lender go through all the due diligence, get your paperwork together, and make sure they're looking at it and get you a pre-approval letter. Everything being the same. If you get 2 offers coming in, if you're the seller, and there's a pre-qual and a pre-approval, please take the pre-approval. It means that the bank really looked at the information before they put that letter out. It is so important in today's market that you get the right letter. I mean, we'll do a pre-qual in a minute, and then the pre-approval based on your paperwork. I got the last piece of information last night on the client. Within 10 minutes, I gave them the pre-approval letter. So, and they got the house, and everyone's excited. Life is good. So, but you just have to be prepared once again. Hope that helps.
It does.
Sure.
Shalia and Lisa, I'm just curious, for people looking to sell their home without a real estate agent's guidance, what are some mistakes that you see sellers make when they try to sell a home on their own, or, you know, just how you guide people who are looking to sell their house? What are the tips that you have for them, or mistakes that you help them avoid?
I think the biggest mistake that I see people making, and sometimes unfortunately it happens if they are trying to be helpful or kind to a family member, a friend, a neighbor, and so they might sell their house to someone, and then they found out after the fact they could have gotten $20,000, $30,000 more for that property. The pricing, and again, back to where we started, the pricing strategy is so important. Now, that being said, if you want to sell your home to a family member, and you know what you're doing, that is 100% your decision. It's just, if you didn't know that information, you might be disappointed at the end to find that out. So again, having that pricing strategy, knowing what you could have if you opened it to the market.
The other thing is the process, the whole process that we walk through when we're putting a house on the market. There's a lot of different stages that we go through, and we want to make sure that you're educated so that when you do make a decision, it's the best one for you.
We just had a very interesting question come in through the chat. Are vacation homes and vacation areas hot sellers just like primary homes?
Yes. Yeah, you know, we're really fortunate in Western New York. We have several vacation markets that we cover, whether it is Lake Life on Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, Chautauqua Lake, Finger Lakes. We have a lot of people who want to experience that. And then ski resorts, Ellicottville. There are quite a bit of vacation homes. That market has gotten really strong in the last couple of years, especially domestic vacation properties, because, and I say that, you know, all kidding aside, I have friends who have second homes in Canada. They haven't been there. They haven't been able to get there. And vice versa, Canadians with a vacation home in Ellicottville. And so it's made it even more attractive to have your second home closer to your primary residence. You may buy a condo in Ellicottville, you may buy a lake house in Mayville, and that's driven those prices up as well, especially you know, your second home might also be an investment. You might be buying a home again on Chautauqua Lake that you want to use for a few weeks a year, and you're going to Airbnb it, you know, follow all the rules and local ordinances and all that, but it might be a vacation property. The 4 of us could decide we want to go in together and do our own fractional ownership on a property and buy a home. So the vacation, the second home market is very strong. And there are many opportunities out there. I think people are you know, the draw to be close at home, the draw to be with family is certainly very strong in these last couple of years. And being able to do that every weekend if you want is a big plus for a lot of people. Absolutely.
Lisa, have you seen a spike in people putting their homes on the market now that the Canadian border, they're not COVID testing anymore? Has there been a spike in homes going on the market and people buying those homes?
I have not seen a big spike in inventory, but the people are looking. And so when you know, it's the same as everything else. We've got an oversupply of buyers looking at properties, but yes, we've got people looking to purchase. Yes.
Here's the next question. A buyer offers a specific mortgage product. How does the seller know if it's a good one? What does the seller need to know about various mortgages?
That's me. First of all, as we mentioned before, make sure it's a pre-approval letter. Very simple. Make sure it's a pre-approval letter, okay? The other thing is, take a look at the product. As I mentioned, really easy, a government loan, FHA, VA, USDA, they're in the peeling paint to make sure it's taken care of, right? The next thing is it contingent? You know, do they have to sell their home to buy your home? It's very important. It's maybe more difficult in this market to put a contingent offer. Doesn't mean you can't, do it and try it. But at the end of the day, the seller, as you know, may take a non-contingent offer. All the programs are good if it's done by the right lender. And I don't mean to be flippant with that, but you know what? They're all great. Like personally, I have a big thing for veterans. I love the VA loans. You know what? It's the right thing to do. You get to feel good at the end of the day. Yeah, there is no money down. So it's one of those things, they take advantage of that program because they deserve it, right? If you're disabled, there's extra benefits there. So there's certain programs that are wonderful for the buyer, but shouldn't put the seller in any different aspect. You're still going to get your 200,000 or the 300,000 that you want, right? And yeah, if someone's going to be putting down 50% down, I guess at the end of the day, if I have two offers and the price are similar, and someone's putting 50% down and someone's putting 5% down, I may lean, into the 50%. But as a seller, I'm not going to take a $10,000 haircut just because you have more money to put down and the other offer is better. So it's important to understand your options and please use that real estate agent and with Howard Hanna to ask those good questions because every situation is different. But you know what? So the programs are good if it's done by the right lender at the end of the day. Hope that helps a little bit. Earnest money, the higher the earnest money, that's a great idea. I mean, so if you're trying to buy a home, it's okay to put a $20,000 earnest money check down, even higher. There used to be the day years ago when I started, you put down $500. You're not buying my house for a $500 earnest money check anymore in this market. So understand, to make your offer stronger, a strong earnest money deposit in which, if something goes up, the seller may have the opportunity to keep that money if a buyer just walks away and there is no contingency that they can throw at you at the end of the day. So hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, and that leads into the next question. What are contingencies and what are the consequences of them?
Contingency.
Your question.
Are we talking about mortgage contingency or any contingency?
Any. Yeah.
Any. Contingencies, there's contingencies on the contract. One would be a home inspection. The other one would be your mortgage. Time is one of them. The inspection, the consequences would be if a buyer were to do the home inspection and the buyer wanted repairs, if they were health and safety issues, that could be that it would be the seller that would help out with the repairs. So that is a contingency.
We had a viewer ask, back to what Kevin was saying, would you please explain a bit more about what is earnest money? I had to learn this also. I think more and more people are going to find this as a tip, and then it's going to become more and more common. But for someone who was unaware, Lisa or Kevin, if you wanted to take.
I'll start with it, and Lisa, you can finish it. Okay. So let's give you an example. Let's say I tell you as the buyer that you need $30,000 to buy this home. Whatever reason, down payment, closing costs, taxes, you want to put 10% down. You need 30,000, right? Well, if you put down a good faith deposit, earnest money of 20,000, let's say, which means once your offer is accepted and you've gone through the attorney approval. So you reach the home inspection, contingency's done, your attorney says, okay, we're good to go. You then write the check for 20 grand. You give it to, I'll pick on Lisa. You give it to Lisa, who's the Howard Hanna agent. She gives it to the listing agent. Out of the 30,000 that I said you needed, you've already paid 20. So you've already put down a big chunk. And as a buyer, I'm going to make it very simple. If I'm buying your house and all of a sudden I decided that, you know what, I don't like the color. I'm going to buy the house across the street. Well, and I'm not an attorney, please, but good likelihood I'm going to lose my 20 grand because I decided to change my mind during the process. And I had no legal right to change it. Like I can still get a mortgage, but I want the blue house instead of the yellow house. That's going to be a problem. So as a seller, because you took the house off the market, you deserve that money because you know, all the potential buyers you don't have anymore. But Lisa, can you give an idea on the Howard Hanna side?
Right.
What that means to you?
Yeah, a lot of it you said, and again, we go by different terms. We call it the earnest money. We call it the escrow deposit. We call it the good faith deposit. And again, it is that dollar amount that's tied to the contract, which says, yes, you're going to hold this money, and then it's applied to closing. In New York State, it is held in your listing typically. The listing broker's escrow account. It is not commingled with any other funds. It is only held until closing and then distributed per the closing. And just like Kevin said, it's applied towards your buyer's expenses. So it is not an extra amount of money. And again, you're going to need it in the next 60 days anyway. So it's just showing, look, we're serious. We really want this to go through, and we're, you know, putting as much money as we can on the table. You know, and again, it shows that willingness to perform. We saw one recently. It was a high priced home, and the escrow, the earnest, the good faith deposit was $300,000. That's the largest I've seen. But I mean,
Crazy.
that is a buyer who is trying to prove that they are ready, willing, and able. And when you as the seller might be looking at one or two offers on your property, I mean, it stands out to me, and I look at offers for agents in the office all day long, and I remember that one for sure.
That $500 is just not going to cut it anymore.
No.
What's the best time of year to sell? Anytime because the inventory is so low, or is there a specific time where pictures may show better on a listing?
Any time is a good time to sell. When the buyer or the seller is ready, now's the time to sell. A lot of people think that, you know, during the spring market is the best time. What really depends on the seller. What is their motivation? What is their goal? So it's something that we would sit down and have a discussion with, but any time is the right time.
We had a pre-submitted question. If a buyer is paying cash, what is the average time to complete a home sale?
I think when you're looking at a cash offer on your property compared to an offer with financing, you might save a couple of weeks. I mean, Kevin had mentioned earlier that first priority can get clear to close in 30 days. It's just a matter of letting all parties know you want to close quickly. And instructing your attorney to update the search as fast as possible, the survey as fast as possible. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, it's important to remember that at the end of the day, the seller wants the money, the buyer wants the keys. The bank is going to give you cash at closing so you can move on and do what you need to do next. But you might save a week or two if there's not, like Kevin talked about, the appraisal, the inspection, that guy looking for the peeling paint, as he keeps talking about. You'll save a little time with that, but just a few weeks.
And we kind of touched on that before, if you should fix everything that you detect in your house before listing, but what else do sellers need to disclose to potential buyers?
You know, and that was a question that we had pre-submitted from someone. And one of the things I want to mention is get together. If, let's say, you know, in Western New York, we have basements, for better or for worse sometimes, and some of those basements have had water and you've had it repaired. Many of the contractors around here will give you a transferable guarantee. They'll give you a warranty on those repairs. Maybe you had your roof done last year. If you're thinking of selling, find all that paperwork, find your transferable guarantees, find the warranty on any in appliances maybe that you bought recently, because you want to be able to say to a seller, yes, to your purchaser, we did have water in the basement. Here's the company who repaired it, and here's the transferable guarantee on it.
That would be the nice thing to do. You hope every seller is like that.
Yes.
We have a little less than 10 minutes now. If you're watching and you have a question for our expert panel, or if you have a question about mortgages or selling, please enter those in the chat now. We want to make sure that everyone feels like their questions are answered. I have another question here. How important is the inspection, and what should I do if a buyer tries to negotiate after it's over?
Well, as agents, we never counsel our buyers not to do a home inspection. It's their right, and they have that opportunity to do that. So it's the consequences that we want to talk about. And what that means is if the buyer is putting in an offer when the buyer does a home inspection, they find some things that need to be repaired, they might want to offer to the seller that we'll do repairs up to a certain amount of money. So the seller then would decide if they want to do the repairs or not. It's really up to the seller at the end of the day. But again, the buyer wants to buy and the seller wants to sell.
Lisa, did you want to add something to that?
I think just as we've talked about, the whole home buying and selling process is full of options. And so, how we're going to react to something, we don't know until it actually happens, and we can have that conversation. You might have someone who says, oh, I don't want to do any repairs. I don't want to do anything. And sometimes their Hanna real estate agent will say, but if you needed to change an outlet cover, would you do that? They say, well, yeah, of course. So, it's hard to address those until they come up. And again, that goes back to why we believe having a representative in this huge transaction is important, that you've got someone there giving you good guidance from start to finish.
One of the biggest decisions you'll make in your life. We had a viewer question. What if you want to sell in the summer, and how can you delay the closing while looking for a new home option to rent or buy?
Well, in my world, a couple of things. We talked about before about recasting a loan, buying 2 homes and then selling a home in the future, right? We talked about, I've seen contracts, and I know Shalia and Lisa will agree, that maybe you're the seller, but you need to find suitable housing. So you put it right in the contract. Maybe a first-time home buyer is willing to buy your $180,000 home, and they don't need to move in within 60 days. And so they may give you 30 days to find suitable housing in Western New York so that you're not going to be homeless. That in reality, I guess if you really didn't want to sell at the end of 30 days, you could say, nope, I'm not going to sell the home. I can't find the house. What my experience have seen when my seller who's going to buy a new home puts that in the contract, say, I need to find a home, they're extremely motivated, because you think about it, you as a seller already know how much money you're going to make, right? You get the net sheet from the Howard Hanna agent. You know you got $85 to work with. So you know your number. So when you're finding other homes and you're working with a mortgage professional here, is we can guide you on what $85,000 really can do. So you may not be reluctant anymore of looking at that $350,000 home because you have that extra money that you didn't know you're going to get. So, it's kind of cool knowing your final number. And so that reverse contingency may be for you the right play. But once again, what's good for you may not be right for your neighbor. What's good for you might not be right, at the water cooler with one of your employees, because everybody is different. And that's the cool thing about why we all love what we do, is we can talk to 20 people about the same topic and the same question and come up with 20 different solutions, and for everybody, because everyone is different. Everyone's needs and wants are different. And that's what we do best, is to make sure that you are comfortable and you know your answers to your questions, and answers to questions you don't even know to ask yet. And because we ask a lot, so.
The question just came in also, can you rent from the buyer to give yourself a month or 2 to move out?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, again, it's we feel like broken records, right? So many options, so many different strategies. And so we have things called a delayed closing. We've been talking about that kind of, 60-day average, but someone might say, like at the beginning of the hour when someone was talking about building a house, they might say, hey, I need a 4-month closing because my house isn't going to be done yet. Someone else might say, hey, we're getting to that time of graduations. I can't move until after the 3rd week of June because we're waiting for graduation. I would like a post-occupancy period. Other people might say, hey, I've got to get out of this place. the house is vacant, maybe it's an estate, they want a pre-occupancy. All of those can be drawn up by the attorneys for the buyers and sellers. So as the real estate advisors, the bank, we're going to talk about what do people want. We're going to put maybe some language together, but those agreements will be drawn by the attorney so that everyone is protected during those periods. We make sure if you're occupying, a property you don't own, you have renter's insurance. We have some teeth to that. If one party doesn't perform, your attorney is going to make sure you're covered with that as well. So one thing I will say, when you're selling, and especially if you're selling and buying, not only do you want a great real estate agent from Howard Hanna and a financing from First Priority, please make sure your attorney specializes in real estate, because we just, in these last couple minutes, I think we threw out 10 things that could go wrong. And that's why it's so important to have knowledgeable professionals working on your behalf. I mean, we like to think we're the quarterbacks, right? We're the Josh Allens of your real estate transaction. And we want to make sure that our team is there with you, making sure we hit the goal line.
Another great analogy, Lisa. First the steak and the salmon. So
Yeah.
what if you own a double and you're debating whether you're going to keep that double or if you're going to sell it? Is it just a matter, Kevin, of weighing out the income that you lose from renting out a double? Because people are renting out at really high rates right now too, or if you were just going to sell it completely.
It's a huge personal choice. It is huge. People look at me and say, Kev, how come you don't have rental properties? I say, kidding me? I do not want the phone call at 11:30 that my toilet is backed up. So that's why some of us may not want rentals. So it's easy to live in a rental and take care of the problems because you're living there. It's a whole different thing when you're not living there anymore and you got tenants and up and down and you have to deal with all the situations. So number one, it's a real personal choice. It does not always come down to dollars and cents. We all agree life is too short. And yes, could you make money renting? Absolutely. In this market, absolutely. I hear rents are going maybe 20% higher. Yes. Do you want to deal with the headache? Is that something that you want to deal with? And it's just life choices, and it's really personal. And so maybe we can show you a way of buying a new home without selling, or maybe there's a way benefit is to sell. You check with your accountant, of course. It's a big play. When you own a double, one of the first questions other than us to call is your personal account and ask those questions. You got to have an accounting advice and attorney advice because they will help guide you through the process so you don't make any wrong decisions along the way. Critical. I keep saying that. It's so important. But if you don't get guidance, we're just here to help.
Today, absolutely. Kevin, Shalia, Lisa, thank you so much. We're so delighted that you could all join us this evening, and we hope everyone watching that your questions were answered. Of course, our panelists are here for you. All of their information can be found on howardhanna.com. If you're looking for an agent, what's that, Kevin?
And firstprioritymortgage.com for the mortgage.
Firstprioritymortgage.com.
One ST.
And of course, all of our panelists know all the ins and outs of the market. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.